a security guard? You're going to put bars on your windows. Like, what are you going to do to hide this cash from other bad people? So we're going to increasingly have to answer that question. And the same thing will happen with Bitcoin that's happened with other assets, which is you're going to use a combination. You're going to use some amount of self-custody where you hold on to yourself. Different people will have different thresholds. Now, the ability to secure Bitcoins is easier for most types of attacks, but we're going to go through some evolution here. And then, of course, you can put some amount of it into custody. A lot of people do ask, they're afraid that they're not going to be able to pass it on to their kids. Maybe they have a technical setup that's difficult for their spouse or their family to take over. So this has been an increasing thought. But look, I think the industry will continue to evolve. We'll continue to make it easier. You're going to have both options available to you, and everybody's going to have to figure out what's the right balance for themselves.
Awesome. And Justin, so you were looking dapper last Thursday. You were in a great tuxedo. Can we see you in the tuxedo later this week at some events? And what was sort of the main takeaway from the dinner? Is there anything that you learned from last Thursday? As a top holder of Trump coin, it'd be interesting to hear from you, your unique perspective from being the top holder.
Yes, totally. So for the gala dinner last week, I think President really showed commitment to Bitcoin and the whole crypto ecosystem. I will say without Trump, Bitcoin cannot go like 100K US dollars, right? So I think his support is enormous and very important to our industry, and I'm really appreciate what all his policies and all the Trump administration has done, like all the research, encouraged the whole industry to support it, right? And also happened in United States. I think it's the best thing because U.S. is one of the leading countries in financial regulation. I think once U.S. had a clear regulation for cryptocurrency, for Bitcoin, like all the other countries in the world can just embrace it, right? So that's why I think the progress we are making here in United States really matters, because it will further encourage people around the world to get into Bitcoin industry. Because before that, I'm visiting all the world leaders. They seem to be quite conservative on Bitcoin too, right? But after US embrace Bitcoin fully, I think lots of them come back to me, right? It's what's going on? We want to revisit Bitcoin again. So that's why I think once Bitcoin pass this kind of the stage and get institution adoption in the United States, it will accelerate the adoption globally. That's what strategy I see. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think that's an important notion that the U.S. has some of the most deep liquid markets. And so leading from the front with product innovation, access, leads me to Hunter. And what can we expect from you guys going forward on new products? Or is there demand that you're seeing from current clientele, whether it's retail, institutional? What type of strategies are they looking for linked to Bitcoin? It doesn't have to be Bitcoin. It could be cover call strategies. I know you guys launched one recently. You guys just made a distribution. Congratulations. So what can we expect?
For those who don't know Bitwise, we've been around for 7 years. We manage $12 billion of client assets, and our aspiration is to be a partner to investors and to give them leverage on their time in accessing the opportunities of the space. And that's relevant to mention for this question because more is the answer. When a client has something that they want to accomplish, if they're a partner of ours or a client of ours, we want to help them be able to do that with professional management and leverage. So we mentioned OwnB, which is helping people participate in the companies buying Bitcoin on their balance sheet, a new ETF. We launched 3 covered call products, IMST for generating income on MicroStrategy, and 2 others in that vein. I think the conversation with traditional investors is still to some extent about grokking the space for the first time. So thinking about Bitcoin, thinking about companies in the space, equities, Having said that, for investors who've been in the space for a long time, they're starting to want to do additional things. So we've had a bunch of requests to generate yield on Bitcoin for investors. They have Bitcoin sitting in a custodian. They want us to generate yield for them, and we're starting to do that. So there's so many different things that I could hit on there, but I think the theme is continuing to build bridges so that more investors, institutions, wealth managers feel empowered to access the opportunities of the space. And at the same time, for investors who are further along, keeping pace with the things they want to be doing with their Bitcoin, like generating yield these days, which is a very common topic.
Yeah, and I think Bitcoin, if you take a step back, you've got Bitcoin has a beta of 1. And then you can go into high volatility, high beta Bitcoin strategies, and you can have low volatility, low beta strategies. I mean, that's how we look at sort of a Bitcoin covered call strategy where you could generate income. It could become your own Bitcoin treasury, and you're generating income every single month off of it, and it's sort of your lower vol, and you can go into the higher vol sections should you want. And I think there's just tremendous opportunity and democratization of that. And I think, you know, I'd love to hear from Mike and Justin on what can we see in those types of new products coming out that are sort of tethered to your guys' WBTC?
Yes, totally. So first of all, I think we're gonna see more and more product on chain, right? So we see recently Kraken start to bring stocks on blockchain as well. So it's I think it's a great idea, because you can trade stocks, you know, and also all the index on blockchain, and also, of course, with crypto exchange. And I think every financial, traditional finance, TradFi product will be bring on blockchain. And also on the same time, you know, we have like Rare Bitcoin product to bring Bitcoin onto the blockchain as well, right? So basically, I think in the future, Ethereum, Solana, like Tron, those major blockchains, you can have all the product trading in a decentralized way on the blockchain. But of course, I think the arbitrage opportunity and also the yield product will be enormous. So you can earn yield no matter from like stable coin or Bitcoin or like stocks, you know, anything. You can do it on chain. And also the beauty of doing it on chain, I think, is the transparency. So like everybody can see like if you have the real money, have the real product, and also doing it in a decentralized way. You don't need to trust anybody, right? You don't need to be afraid of, you know, my money got a freeze on chain, right? Like I cannot withdraw something. So it's gonna be fully transparent. We have seen some on-chain futures trading platform doing very successfully. And I think eventually we will see a lot of the product, right? Like getting on the blockchain and be very successful. So I think Rare Bitcoin is just one of the products to bring Bitcoin onto blockchain, and we will continue to do so.
And Mike, what are you seeing from the institutional side?
Well, I think it's still early. You know, we're actually really lucky that we finally have regulatory that's like enabling us to have these conversations. We were kind of just stuck in the how do you get to use it at all. There's been a lot of interest in the last 12 months around Bitcoin staking. Frankly, I think it's still actually pretty early for these. There's a number that have been, I think there's something like 91 different Bitcoin staking protocols that have come out in the last 12 or 15 months. Right now, it's still actually pretty early for getting a yield off of them. I think also we haven't really learned how to quantify exactly where the risk is. I think there's a lot of people that are coming and saying, hey, stake with us, and making it sound stronger than it is. But look, we'll get there, and that'll start to be something. On the DeFi side, it's also been difficult to have the conversation about how DeFi fits into institutional investors when you haven't even figured out how Bitcoin fits in for institutional investors. So now that we have that first hurdle done, we got great products, you know, from Hunter and his team, and you know, there's so many stocks on the market that can give you Bitcoin exposure as well. Now that conversation about how does this dovetail into DeFi gets to start happening. I think it's probably still 3 to 5 years before it's very formed. I don't think there's a huge low risk yield anywhere, but people are going to start figuring out what they like.
Awesome, and you know, we've got a limited time left, so I just want to kind of get some final thoughts from the panel. We'll go up and down the river. So we'll start with Hunter, and just what are you seeing? I guess here's the best question we could end with. Where do you think Bitcoin's going to be at the end of the year?
I've never been more optimistic about this space. I mean, everything that you could hope for, and YouTube have been in the space for a long time, Bitwise has been in the space for 7 years, so many things are going right. Now, the world does not happen in days and weeks. Some things take months, some things take quarters. But if there's one high-level thing I could say to everyone here, we're all part of a community. My gosh, it's happening. Bitcoin is becoming a mainstream asset, and I think you're going to see it everywhere. So I think higher.
You heard it here first, 1 million.
Look, I think unlocking the U.S. regulatory problem has a massive global effect. So we operate 7 regulated custodians around the planet. I talk to regulators all the time. They were all looking to the U.S. for leadership. At the end of the day, regulators and legislators are just like everybody else, a bit of a school of fish. They don't want to stray too far away. The U.S. has the strongest, best capital markets in the world. That is not changing anytime soon. So they're all looking for the U.S. That's now happened. It's going to take, as Hunter said, it's not days and weeks. It's quarters and years. It's money. It should move a little bit slower than social media and other types of technologies. But the unlock is happening right now, so it's really strong. I guess one word of caution, I don't mean to be negative, but for everybody here, this is the Bitcoin crew. Many of you have been around for a long time. We have to stay diligent, right? Like there still are, I think, real threats to Bitcoin. I'll throw it out. I don't think quantum computing is a problem, 6 months from now, but I get this question every month. So it's become a inhibitor for some to get their heads around Bitcoin, maybe the new FUD. It's our job to go and put these things to bed. Right? Let's go fix it. Let's go continue to ratchet up the security, make sure that this thing doesn't have any faults, and it'll make it stronger against any type of legislative or regulatory difficulties which will otherwise be put on top of us.
Yes, I have joined the industry since 2012, and one of the lessons I learned is Bitcoin is always going up, so don't bet against Bitcoin, So I think it's enormous to see, U.S. is coming back, right, with the conference we have today. Like everybody is backing on U.S., building Bitcoin ecosystem. I think we will continue to hit all-time high, So we basically have an all-time high like last week, right? I think the whole industry continue building. We're gonna see the price continue to going up. I have no doubt about that, and I think we just keep building.
Yeah, that's great. And I think one of the things too is I hear a lot out there that people look at global M2, right? And back previously used to money printer go burr, things like that. So looking at global M2 and looking at the 90 to 105-day lag, kind of gives support that there is still monetary easing happening in the marketplace, and Bitcoin could be a great alternative in portfolios. So I think that's a great way to look at it. And as Hunter said, higher, but it's hard to pick a price. It's hard to value it against certain things. So, but having access and exposure is very important for investors, and we have some of the leading firms here. So I appreciate everyone's time. We'll do one more. I say Naka, you say Moto. Naka. That's right. All right. Thank you, Vegas. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and have a great Bitcoin week.
Thank you so much, Jen.
We're here at the Deep, and behind me you can see the replica of the new Shepard capsule. This mini spaceship takes humans to space. It's currently taken 58 humans, and currently it's going to take 6 more this weekend. We're going to try and go in and see how comfortable it is to go to space. Honestly, the price is not public yet, but I heard it takes a couple Bitcoin to go up to space. I don't know. How many Bitcoin would you make to go to space? Do you think Katy Perry and Jeff Bezos would pay to go to space? Woo! This is very, very interesting. It's very warm in here, especially since the deep is really cold. It has over 6 seats, so you can just lay there, enjoy the view from the whole world, literally, because you're going to be in outer space. Bueno, guys, I want to know, how much Bitcoin did you pay to go to space?
Welcome back to the Bitcoin Magazine News Desk presented by Mara. We're live at Bitcoin 2025, the largest Bitcoin conference in the world, happening behind us. The price, $109,000. Of course, lots to come here on day one. Industry Day, alive and well and rolling. You're going to hear upcoming from Bo Hines, representatives of Cantor Fitzgerald. You're going to hear from David Sachs and Donald Trump Jr. But to break down all that we're about to see and all that we've seen, we've got special guests here. We've got Aaron Van Wertum, editor-in-chief at Bitcoin Magazine, and Alexander Lizet, CEO of Blockchain Group, a publicly traded Bitcoin treasury company out of France, currently one of the hottest stocks on the Paris Stock Exchange. So why don't we start there, Alex, with you. The Bitcoin treasury company model, this is a fairly new idea. Michael Saylor, of course, pioneering this years ago, but it was recently caught fire. Last year at this conference at Bitcoin 2024, there was maybe a handful of companies buying Bitcoin, putting it on their balance sheet, and using corporate debt to finance those purchases. Now it's wildfire. There's over 100 companies doing it. What happened?
Well, in the world today, the best performing companies are Bitcoin treasury companies. You can see Strategy over 5 years, 3,000%. Metaplanet over 1 year, 4,000%, even 5,000%. And now you have in Europe, Blockchain Group, already 2,000% in 6 months. We are the #1 performing stock out of all stocks traded in Paris. We have 100x our volumes. And we have the best performance over the last 6 months. And that's due to our focus to Bitcoin. We are Bitcoin maximalists. We fully focus on Bitcoin. We only do Bitcoin per share increase over time. And you have thousands of companies that have Bitcoin on the balance sheet. But overall, you have only 3 companies, in my view, that are fully laser eyes focused on the strategy playbook. Of course, Strategy, Metaplanet, and us.
Aaron, I want to go over you. There are risks and concerns. Some would say a bit of a cultural divide. We've got Alex here in his orange tie. We've got yourself in a polo representing maybe the older culture. Can you talk a little bit about what you might find uncomfortable about these Bitcoin treasury companies?
Well, I mean, there's 2 angles to take. Let me start with the first one. Okay, so these companies have been doing very well. Bitcoin itself has also been doing very well, right? And it has to do with each other. These companies are buying Bitcoin, price goes up, does well for the company. But what if the trend reverses? It's going to reverse at some point, presumably. Like, are we going to see a similar rate of decline as we've seen with previous Bitcoin bubbles? Is it just is your company going to crash even faster than Bitcoin itself?
So there are key risks to take into account for Bitcoin treasury companies. The first one, of course, is the prolonged fall in Bitcoin price that can happen. And of course, as Bitcoin treasury companies represent more Bitcoin and Bitcoin leverage exposure for investors, well, that represents potentially even higher downside in a bear market.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come back to this debate. We're throwing it now to the main stage. We'll be back with more content for Bitcoin 2025.
The Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, he's done that. We're well on our way of becoming the Bitcoin superpower of the world. If you look at his first digital asset CEO, there were some landmarks in there that are important to consider. You know, we had the 30-day landmark, which required interagency actors to do an internal review or audit of everything they touched in the digital asset space. We had the 60-day landmark, which compelled the same actors to basically provide a list of recommendations, things that they could do independently to help us, welcome in the golden age for digital assets here in the U.S. And then now we're working diligently, as Tyler will describe, on our 180-day report, which will be more like a book to show what is the most robust framework we can possibly have to welcome innovation here in the United States, establish ourselves as that Bitcoin superpower, and really ensure that innovation is happening onshore and not going offshore.
Just to echo what Bo was just said, I would say we're back. We were in a pretty dark place a couple years ago, and we're back reestablishing ourselves as the digital asset and Bitcoin leader in the world. And just as the secretary said the other day, we're going big on digital assets. So Bo wrapped up what we have been working on in terms of the 30 and 60-day landmarks for the first executive order. We have a big report that we're working on that's due in July 22nd. It's really a comprehensive first ever rendition of what the government has produced on what it thinks about digital assets across the government. So it's going to cover everything from tax to market structure to the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, everything you can think about.
So I think that's absolutely right. We definitely saw the sea change shift in the administration change across our portfolio of companies that we work with.